All right, welcome everyone to this event release slash event party for the Stanford Computational Antitrust fourth annual report. I'm very pleased to be here, joined by so many friends and colleagues. It's the third time here that we are doing such a release party at the OECD. So it feels like a real privilege to be able to come back over the years. Before all things, there are a couple of people I want to thank, starting with Roland Vogel, who may be watching us online. Roland is Codex Director, and I said it many times, I'll say it again, this project, the Computational Antitrust Project, wouldn't be possible without his support. So Roland, once again, thank you so very much. Also to the people at the OECD, Despina is joining us. Thank you so much. You were on the panel 2 years ago. You contributed a great deal to the subject. Antonio, you also made that possible, so thank you. And I've listed Ori, Sophia, and other people here. You make this event possible, so thank you very much. We are very much honored by your trust and interest in the subject. I also want to thank you, Teodora, as always, for your stamina all year long. And today, I won't actually call you Teodora for the very first time, but I will call you Dr. Groza, because you just defended your PhD just last week very successfully, I'm told. So congratulations on that. What I won't do this year is to present the project. I've done it many times. Teodora has done it many times. Everything you can access on our website, computationalantitrust.com. It goes to Stanford website, and you have access to everything we've done over the years. Basically, the project is an academic project, purely academic. We get to work with now 75 competition agencies, 50 academics. We publish articles. We have a podcast. This year, we have the head of many competition agencies on it, and many other episodes are already scheduled. So have a look at all that. But I want to tell you about the program for today. Teodora and I, will give a 20-minute presentation about the report. What we've done is that we have outlined the main patterns and trends. And you will see that some of them are surprising, if not very surprising, compared to what we saw just 12 months ago. And then we have speakers that we'll introduce in due time and a cocktail party. Now, I'm told that the OECD closes at 7:30. So it means that the more time we spend on the panel, the less time we spend at the cocktail reception. So no worries, I'm conscious of that. And as I know it's been a long day for many of you, we've tried to make the panel as dynamic as possible. So if you bear with us for the first 20 minutes, then you're in for more dynamic presentations. All right, I'll start now with some of the insights. And hopefully this would work again. Yes. Okay. First thing first, this is the QR code. Many of you already asked, where can I find the report? This was not yet published. This is now published. This is a QR code you can scan to get access to the report. This will also be published on the LinkedIn events on our website. And I've also created a short URL that you can use to get access to it. In a nutshell, we have 25 agencies that have contributed to this year's report. This is the most ever. Some of those agencies are returning agencies, which is very nice to see. And some others are new to the projects and or new to contribute to the report. It's about 100 pages long, right? So hopefully this presentation will give you a hint as to what is inside of the report. And then you can always use a very advanced technology, which is Control F for search, and enter the keywords that you want to see, right? Or the ones that are the most interesting to you. All right, so now that you get access to it, I just want to outline what we're going to do in this very first presentation. We have divided insights regarding the report in 3 distinct categories. The first one relates to the tools that agencies are using. And what I can already spoil you is very surprising is how much they now rely on AI, considering that just 12 months ago, a handful of agencies were interested and or exploring with AI. Then we'll talk about the infrastructure, how data is handled, processed within agencies, new concerns that we didn't hear about before, such as cybersecurity, cloud storage, and others. And we'll finally talk about the institutional shift we've seen over the last 12, if not 24 months. Starting now with some of the tools, I'll pass the floor to Teodora to talk about what seems to be the main use case of computational antitrust, which is to tackle.
Thank you so much, Thibault, and thanks to everyone. It really feels like a birthday party of the project to be here every year. We come, we talk about what we've done in the past year. There's a cocktail, it's celebratory, it's very nice. Now, on to serious things. So bid rigging, as Thibault said, remains the main use case. And it's funny to see how the agencies sort of justified themselves in the report by talking so much about bid rigging. They say, you know, it's important because public procurement is about 15% of the GDP of OECD states. So we have to spend a lot of resources on that. We know. It's good to see that at a high level, there's a joint European project for strengthening bid rigging detection with computational tools. There are about 6 states involved in this project. I've also been impressed by the tool developed by Spain. It's an ML tool that's trained on previous cases, and it aims to recognize suspicious behavior based on past patterns. Peru has a similar tool. Also, we've seen lots of agencies develop network analysis to identify suspicious patterns between firms, bids, but also individuals. And this is very important because more and more literature points out to the fact that we have lots of suspicious ties between individuals themselves, particularly family ties that went undetected in the past. And we also saw a lot of tools that actually process data about bids collected via web scraping. This happens in Pakistan. And what I found the most interesting personally is a tool developed in Lithuania, which is an AI document review tool that can detect not just cartels, but different types of cartels. So price fixing, market sharing, information exchange. And this all done by analyzing different types of words in different contexts and identifying the intents and even emotions attached to those words. And also very important, in Catalonia, now they have a bid rigging detection tool that can also include minor contracts, which means that contracts fragmented into different smaller deals are also identified. And lastly, a repeat player in the bid rigging space, Brazil. They have an amazing tool that organizes procurement data into different types of categories. So we have firm-centric data, but also bid-centric data. And all this data is then processed with AI tools to analyze signs of collusion.
All right, taking a step back, talking about AI more generally, what you will see on the screen, and I know this is way too exhaustive, but I wanted to put it there so you can cherry pick which of the agencies you want to explore. We clearly see that there is a pattern in our agencies relying on foundation models and or the generative AI applications that you plug on top of those models. So while you have a look at that, if we can do 2 things at once, I will also give you a flavor of some of the patterns when it comes to the use of AI. Some of them concerns bid rigging, but it's more than that. There are 6 of them. The first one, we see that when it comes to the capacity to analyze vast amounts of data, many agencies have been investing in the space. They do it first to give access to the case handlers so that they can chat with their own body of jurisprudence and or data. And some other agencies are also doing it so that companies interested in better understanding how computational works can actually, instead of screening each and every case of that agency, have a dialogue and better understand what are the stakes of computational for those companies. When it comes to bid rigging, it seems to be where AI is used the most. We have countries such as, I mentioned already, Australia, Spain, Japan, Lithuania, Pakistan, Slovenia. They've all been developing some AI capacities to tackle bid rigging. Some of them are doing it by getting better statistical patterns. Some of them are doing it by better understanding their own case law and see how it applies to public procurement. So there are many different techniques being deployed out there. The third pattern that we see, and I'll give you a flavor of some other agencies in the meantime, is that it seems that a couple of agencies are investing in news monitoring. One example might be Chile. They have developed a system in which they have analyzed 360,000 news items to see what in the press is being discussed and what are some of the competitive issues that may emerge out of all of those articles. Colombia also is doing something similar. So it seems that agencies, it's fair to say, are now very much more proactive than they were in the past. The fourth pattern is that when it comes to the use of large language models, some agencies have been not only experimenting but also implementing those tools. Poland and Singapore mentions using GPT-4. You also see that other agencies are actually developing their own foundation models and or they fine-tune their existing foundation models. This is the case of Austria, Italy, Luxembourg, and France, and I will come back to it, has developed a foundation model that is fine-tuned, not exactly, but with RAG, retrieved augmented generation, and so is Singapore. The fifth pattern when it comes to AI is a concern for explainability, which is new, not something that we saw in the first three reports, obviously because AI was not so much integrated within the work of the agencies, but we see concerns, including by Singapore, also Spain, that the outcome of those tools needs to be explainable, because if it goes before a judge, the agencies have to be in a position to say, well, this is why we reached the conclusion, instead of just saying, well, that's a black box, we have no clue. So that's a new concern and one that is of importance. The very last one is, and I will also come back to it, international cooperation. When it comes to AI, there are many projects, you will see them in the report, where you see that agencies are cooperating. I'll just give you one example, back to Catalonia. They've been developing a supervised trained model in order to detect big rigging related cartels using data coming out of Catalonia, obviously, but also Switzerland, Italy, and Japan, which shows that they had access to the data and there are therefore some of those cooperations. I'll give back the floor to Teodora to now move away from the tools and discuss the infrastructures.
So moving on to infrastructures, we see a lot of tools developed in the area of web scraping and market monitoring. And it really brings me a lot of joy to see that many of these tools are targeted at monitoring prices. And it's great to see this because this is where the competition authorities actually work for the consumers, which is what they should be doing. So in Chile, we have a tool that surveys the prices of about 80,000 products regularly. In Colombia, we have two tools, one that looks at supermarkets and one that looks at domestic flights, including small luggage, and identifies outlier prices and tries to see whether these problematic price increases are worth investigations. And then in Pakistan, the authority has put in place not just a regional price dashboard that tracks price increases in different regions, but also a tool that identifies fake discount offers. So situations where firms actually claim to decrease the prices, but they had just increased them right before in order to be able to trick consumers into thinking that they're making money by buying right now. News monitoring, Thibault talked a bit about this before. There are two competition authorities that have tools to identify suspicious patterns in news articles. And moving on to market surveillance, something very interesting is happening in Taiwan, where they have a tool that identifies time series in prices. So it breaks a period into different segments and tries to identify whether price increases can be justified by switches in demand. And if these prices cannot be explained economically, then investigations are started. And again, going back to the importance of what consumers care, we see that the agency cares most about staples, so wheat, flour, and soybeans. And the same happens in Peru, where the authority is planning a market monitoring tool targeted at the healthcare market, which is perhaps the most fundamental market of them all. Brazil, we talked a bit about their cartel screening tools already. Austria, I won't get into it because Lukas is here. I don't want to steal the show. So on top of all these web scraping tools, the question that is raised is, where does all this data go? And of course, the question of cloud is in the spotlight. And something very interesting to see was the different approach between EU and non-EU authorities. The Italian authority has built their own cloud system and has emphasized a lot in the report how they want their data to be on the Italian cloud because it has to be safe, sovereign, secure. Whereas Pakistan just mentioned out there that they use Microsoft Azure without any problems. So that's an interesting contrast to think and talk about. In Canada, they don't just have a cloud system, but they also have a very advanced system for data management, where they can generate instant summaries of documents, they can identify patterns, and on top of that, they are planning to build a chatbot that will help the agency staff manage institutional knowledge easily. In France, there's a similar system where they have actually digitized all their documents since 1988, way before I was born, very impressive. And they give monthly updates to their staff to make sure that everybody is up to date as to what's happening. And to showcase their open data and open source approach, they have put all this data available both on their local website, so the website of the French government, and on Hugging Face, which makes it available to all developers willing to build computational antitrust tools. Now, moving on to some very cutting-edge examples. In Lithuania, as I mentioned before, they have built this language processing tool that can identify emotional and behavioral intentions in words. And it's not trained only in Lithuanian language, but can be actually implemented in more than 100 languages. So that's absolutely fantastic in terms of accessibility and interoperability. In Malaysia, which is a first contributor, I think, it's the first time we get a report from them, they talked a lot about a very interesting knowledge management system that they created that has a very good tool for tracking the progress of cases and also for warning case handlers when they have been exceeding delays, moving too slow, and so on. So it's also good for progress tracking. And lastly, in the domain of forensic, we've seen lots of authorities from Austria to Pakistan developing tools that can extract information from messaging apps and not just from traditional communications like emails. So what do we see here in terms of patterns? I've already mentioned a couple of them, but just to make sure that you all go home with the right ideas in mind. Open data and open source is taking a big space in our report, in the sense that authorities are really pushing for that. There's also a cloud-first approach, and lots of authorities are mentioning the importance of secure cloud computing and so on. And something new in this report is the idea of real-time antitrust or proactive antitrust, where authorities are moving from retroactive processing of data to actually live processing. So everything that happens is already digitized and processed. And with that, I give the floor back to Thibault.
Thank you very much, Groza. All right, now on to the last part, so the institutional part, which may to some degree be the most impressive, knowing and observing how big of a shift we've seen in the last 12 months. When it comes to dedicated digital units, they take all bunch of different names, but you see that in the last 12 months, if not 24, many agencies all over the world have been creating units or extended their expertise. So there is clearly a trend. Now, not all of those units work in the same way. Some of them work towards the beginning of the end of the food chain when it comes to a case. Some of them are fully integrated. It seems that it requires more analysis as to what may be the more effective form of institutional design here. But in any case, there is a push. There is a need for data scientists, computer scientists. We also see that behavioral psychologists are actually playing a role in a couple of agencies. So there is clearly something here that can't be denied. Now, when it comes to cross-agency collaboration, there are two other trends. One that relates to the internationalization of computational antitrust, and the other one that looks at how competition agencies within a country are actually collaborating more today than they were yesterday. When looking at internationalization, you see that there are many projects. They've been mentioned by a couple of agencies, so you have more detail as to what exactly that entails. But to talk about what the OECD is doing in this space when it comes to behavioral science working group, what Peru has done, also hosting the OECD Regional Center for Latin America, and the discussion they had on computational antitrust, you see that this is now a global subject, and expertise from all over the globe is actually combined, which we very much welcome. When it comes now more looking at each individual country, it seems that in some countries outside of the EU, they have perfect access to all of the public procurement data, and they benefit a lot from that. Of course, we may want to talk about what it means for the right of defense, but there is a push also within the EU, and I'm told that actually at the EU level, we may see some legislative changes for competition agencies to get more automatic access to that data. It may also be that they want to have access to the data of data protection agencies. Some of you mentioned that in the reports. It seems that some countries have been managing this, while some others have been pushing more for academic collaboration. So when it comes to those collaboration, this is indeed a trend that we observe. I'll conclude with those. Some challenges, talk about the future just in a minute, and a little bonus that is dear to me and anticipate on some of the questions that I always get. When it comes to the challenges, there are technical challenges. I won't get into any of those. Those are nicely detailed in the report. I think it's extremely valuable that agencies would actually say, this is where we struggle. This is what we've been trying. This is the failure we've encountered, because agencies have learned a lot from that, from what I'm told. When it comes to the other challenges, you have one in terms of recruitment and retention. Brazil mentions that it's very hard for them to retain the staff, same for Peru. Other agencies, such as the Netherlands, not featured in this year's report, but we had Martin Snoep on the podcast, mentioned that it is actually not at all a struggle for them to find people with the technical expertise for very national specific reasons. There is a budget constraints. We see that there is a concern for what competition does and antitrust does before the courts, the quality of the data, and management is mentioned as one of the challenges that agencies are encountering when it comes to actually making it clear in the mind of all of the case handlers that they have to be proactive now and can't simply rely on reactive methods. A couple agencies, again, are mentioning this as a challenge. When it comes to the future, we see here and there that some very advanced technologies, for the most part, are emerging. When it comes to graph neural nets, behavioral insights, Canada has now a unit of 7 psychologists. Virtual assistants, so that actually the case handlers can have better discussions with the body of case law published by the agency, A and B testing, Gen AI already very much present, but it seems to be that next year, and we'll see whether or not I get this one right, but we'll see more of that. I want to finish, before I pass the floor to our speakers, with a little bonus. I want to talk about the VCUC. You probably have no idea what it means because I just made that up. This means very cool use cases. The reason why I integrated this is that over the cocktail party, what I've seen is that I'm often asked, like, could you come up with 1 or 2 examples that I think are actually very cool, or to put it in a more academic way, very interesting or promising. So I think, to be fair, that all of what is in the report, Teodora and I exchanged quite a lot of messages, and we're like, can you believe that they actually managed to do that? So the whole report we think is very cool. Now, I had to select a couple of them that maybe are more unique, right? And this is what I came up with. So the Chile example of analyzing 360,000 news article, I think is very cool, very unique. Colombia, we've mentioned that already, monitoring the prices of domestic flights, and especially what it does when you want to add luggages, I think is also very cool. Poland came up with a customized version of GPT-4 that is fine-tuned to detect dark patterns, and they've actually run that on a couple thousand websites. Also very cool, Italy is reverse engineering ranking algorithms on booking platform. It seems to be also pretty unique. Hungary has created a cartel chat. They do not mention whether or not it's AI powered. Basically, the idea is that you can actually report anonymously on the agency website whether or not you are suffering from a cartel. And I imagine if this was AI powered indeed, how deep that chatbot could get, so that in the hand of the case handler, you will get very useful information. France, I mentioned, has created a RAG, which basically gives permission to the case handler to discuss with the whole jurisprudence of that agency. And Singapore, I listed not 1, but 2. had something they mentioned already at the OECD, by the way, in one of the roundtables last year, finally finished their AI verified toolkit that they co-developed. The idea is that you can upload a foundation model and get a first assessment as to whether you may anticipate anti-competitive issues with that model. And they have also a merger decision bot that allow you, again, to interact with a bot that knows about the merger control in that jurisdiction. So those are the VCUC I wanted to talk about. This is, again, the link to the report, but you get the links online. And on that, I'll pass the floor to our speakers, starting with Susana, coming all the way from Spain, who's going to talk about the Spanish experience in the space.
Thank you very much, Thibault. And but the most important thing today is Teodora PhD. So congratulations, also. No, really, no. But I mean, all the things that we have talked about Spain, they have already been presented. So I don't know if there's any questions. So maybe it's going to be quicker and easier and more interesting for all of you. But for kind of all of you know that we have been working for the detection mainly in bid rigging for the last 10 years, so it's nothing new. And so it's the reason why now we developed Brava. The Brava thing, that even if it's said like, and I understand that it's like, let's say an algorithm that say, oh, this is likely to be collusive or not at the level of the bid, not at the level of the tender, is not that simple in the sense that, and this is mainly, I think, that the good forum to do that, because usually when you go like for other forums, you cannot deep into the really technical things. But now that this is the forum, Brava is the mixture of a lot of different, not only patterns, is raw variables, but also different codifications of different patterns and different signs of collusion. And that finally it gets like more, for the moment, I think it's more than 20, it takes into account more than 25 different values and variables and different coding patterns or coding signs that some of them we took it from the literature, but some of the others we really developed from the scratch, like using, for instance, I don't know, reading a lot of papers and reading this kind of indicator is used for detecting fraud in corruption. So let's do it in this way. So maybe it's going to be useful for the cartels detection. And finally, it worked. And and also it was mentioned by Thibault, for other authorities, we also take into account also the minor contracts and also Spain worldwide, statewide, local and national and regional level. That it means that finally we have more than 7 million tenders in our database, and that's what Brava does, and that it was explained some years ago. But the main development, the new development, it was also mentioned by Thibault, that it's that now we are using also and implementing explainability tools. That is, it was mentioned there, is LIME and SHAP technologies, in order to make it more easy to understand. What is to say that when you put something into Brava, Brava says the likelihood to be collusive, the bid or not. But for the moment, it was very simple. But for the moment, an ordinary case handler could not know why was that. Now it's able, through the use of artificial intelligence, it's able to know if this is because I don't know, the Benford law said this, and the algorithm, the a priori algorithm say that, and the value of that, so that it means that. And also, I think we didn't mention it, but I think that maybe we also should, that Brava also distinguish between the different kind of bid rigging cases, in the sense like this is allocation, this is market shares, this is bid rigging rotation. So it's quite useful in that sense. And Well, so yes, just to go very quick, the next step is deep into the explainability model. Also, we are beginning to use the GNA and CNA, the convolutionary network, neural network. Sorry, because I didn't have it in Spanish. And the neural, the usual ones, the generative networks, and for the cases of success, I also said that yesterday, that for the moment, because it was yesterday also, it was posed a question about that it's a very good thing, like, okay, and how can you go to a judge for maybe answering for the warrant? And for the moment, I do not need that. I said that in the sense that I am using Brava for all the cases that I am finding, and going maybe because you have some other suspicions that it's easier to go to the judge. But the thing that it's quite true is that we are using Brava for all the cases that are related with public procurement. And as far for the moment, all the downgrades that we have done, I don't know how it's going to end, because it's not my competence, it's the competence of the board of the CNMC. But at least for the moment, all the downgrades that we are making, at least we consider that we have found really good evidences. So we are quite happy with that. I'm just finished. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I don't have time for follow-up questions, but we may remedy that during the cocktail party. I'll now pass the floor on to you, Lukas, for the take of the Austrian Competition Agency, or at least for your personal take on the subject.
Thank you very much. And let me start by saying your work is really tremendously helpful and impressive. I really appreciate that, and keep up the good work. It's really tremendously helpful. So thank you for that. And thank you for staying with us. I know it's been a long day. And I will try to be brief. And so much has already been said, and I can only confirm that. And I think these issues are actually the perfect example of the power of international cooperation. And the OECD is key in that respect. And we were actually also quite lucky to host an AI workshop in the beginning of this year in Vienna, where we brought together more than 80 participants from different competition authorities in Europe. And we brought together the enforcement people and the tech people. And I can say this was really, really interesting, and I've learned a lot. And also the feedback that I received from participants was basically all of them got back to their respective authorities with new ideas. So this was really great to see. And what I can also say from my observation, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in that respect in our authorities. So I think it's really nice to join forces in that respect. In terms of institutional adaptation, we are also going through a certain process. I mean, as perhaps most of the authorities, we had a more traditional forensic department for quite some time. And we're currently transforming it into a broader unit focused not only on traditional forensics, but also on data analytics and AI, of course. And I'm quite proud to say we have managed to expand our team to 6 experts in that respect, whose main focus is actually on data science. And I know that we might not be able to compete in terms of salary, and this is a competitive market, right? But on the other hand, my impression is salary is one criteria for people to join or not to join, but there are other criteria as well. And especially, I think the opportunity to contribute to our meaningful mission is certainly something that can also attract people. Yeah, so I should also say that the transformation is more than structural. It reflects also a strategic shift, of course. And I can share with you that a significant portion of our budget, about 1/3, is now dedicated to these tools and systems. But tools alone are not enough, in my opinion. Technology is only as powerful as the people that work with the technology. So we try to equally invest in our people ensuring our experts are equipped with the skills needed to fully harness these tools in practice. And let me conclude by looking forward. We have set a certain number of strategic priorities for the years to come, and one of those priorities is the implementation of a cartel screening tool that is dedicated to focus on ex post competition screening, and we aim to have a data collection that enables us to proactively identify potential anti-competitive behavior in that market. And it goes almost without saying that AI and other tools play a key role in that respect. In parallel, and that is interlinked with that initiative, we are deepening our use of AI in forensic work in general, including a large language model tailored to our needs. And it seems a promising avenue to enhance the efficiency in investigative tools. And let me conclude that I think this is quite an exciting moment. And I sometimes hear a lot about challenges, but I think it's also fair to say that these are equally opportunities. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I was indeed very struck by what you mentioned in the reports, the fact that a third of the budget now is dedicated to the field we've been discussing. I should also mention that the head of the Austrian and Spanish competition agencies have been on the podcast just this year. So we had long discussions powered by your work and your insights on what competitional antitrust means in Spain and in Austria. I will now pass the floor on to you, Despina, but before I do that, I'll just share a quick story, something that the head of the Dutch competition agency shared with me in public, which is one specific use case of GenAI that you may want to consider. They had a case before the courts facing a company, a big company, and that company, the day before the hearing, sent a very large document that they had no time to read. So what they've done is that they actually sent that to one of the large language models, asked for a summary, said to the judge, this is the summary that GenAI has made out of the very large document. Can we please use that in court? And the judge said yes. So this was eventually the very short summary they were able to use before the judge. So you can also be very creative, and many of you are, which we see in the report, which is very pleasing. And now I'll pass the floor on to you, Despina, to talk about what you make out of all of that based on all the discussions you have here at the OECD.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Thibault. Thank you also for allowing me to repeat, because I was here a couple of years ago, and congratulations to Teodora. So I will be very quick also, because part of the delay in starting this is my fault. So sorry, I was in another meeting. I had the privilege of reading the report before you, because Thibault was very kind to send me a draft. So it was very impressive. You see what the countries are doing. I mean, it's been said by people before me, but you see that the limitations maybe of computational antitrusts are also the recent trends. So what has been happening is that you have more budget allocated to AI solution and more staff. And if you don't have, and you mentioned, I think, Slovenia, I saw it in the report, if you don't have the budget and the staff, you cannot work with digital tools. So maybe the test, and this is a question that I don't know if we have time now to discuss, or it should be at the cocktail, is for competition authorities, and I don't work in an agency, and much less run it, is how much it makes sense to invest in staff and budget. And what you do if you run, for example, a small agency, what part of your budget and your staff you should allocate to this. I'm saying that knowing that, for example, the successful example of Spain that I know I have followed for many years is also due to the truly indefatigable efforts of Susana, who before becoming the Director General was the head of the Business Intelligence Unit. And I don't say that only because we know each other. It was people and infinite hours of work. So this should be taken into account. Then you get the results you just mentioned. So I cannot speak from an agency perspective but there is a cost in investing in this solution. The other thing is also, because it's very well put in the report and the submissions from the authorities, maybe there is a useful distinction to make. AI gives you many solutions. I mean, the digital solutions exist. And there are things that you do need for your day-to-day work that become infinitely easier. So the case summary you just mentioned, this is a real case. You used Gen AI to create a summary. You needed to go before the judge. You disclosed the Dutch authority the truth. It helped. Same if you see the submissions, there is discussion about case management tools. I think there is only, I mean, again, from the outside, only upsides if you get digital case management tools. Forensics for dawn raids, only upsides. Then you get into the little bit more murky waters of cartel screening. The code is there and agencies can exchange code, but you need the database, you need to clean the data. So you need to start investing. And then there is the test. How much would you invest to create basically investigation leads? I don't have the answer. I'm just saying that the question is out there. That's all for me.
Thanks a lot. What I should say is that, of course, we did not put the highlight on that, but when we ask agencies to contribute to the report, we always say, please include failures, issues, limitations, struggles that you have, things that haven't worked, because there is a lot we can learn from that. And of course, this should be part of the story, right? It's not at all a magical tool that can solve everything. And so far, indeed, I mean, we've seen that competition antitrust raised the need to hire more staff instead of the opposite, right? So thank you very much for that input. I think it's very important indeed to put that front and center, which is what we've tried in the report. Antonio, now that we covered everything, what can you add?
Very little, of course, being the last, I'm the lucky one. I just can refer to everything that's been said before, but I certainly want to congratulate you and Teodora for the work, and not only for the work that you have done this year, but the fact that you committed to do it year after year after year, so it can show a trend. And so I've tried to focus on some of the trends that I have seen, having been fortunate enough to attend your anniversaries, your celebrations here at OECD every year. A first trend, and you've seen it if you notice the list of countries who have contributed to the report, is a very transversal phenomenon. One would imagine it's only the large authorities with more resources, more manpower, more financial resources, but you've seen names, countries like Malawi, like Catalonia. You've seen not only the more experienced authorities who are trying to build new tools or to add to traditional tools, but you've seen also jurisdictions which are relatively more junior, less sophisticated, investing directly into new tools. So the fact that it's very transversal, and I want to pick up on something that Thibault said before, because I hope we, to some extent, contribute to that, the value of cooperation, international cooperation. Those of you who were, in Edinburgh a few weeks ago, there was a tech forum where, the experts from all of these data units and digital units met to exchange views. It's clear that it's contagious. So, the experiences, especially the positive experiences, inspire others to follow the examples. A lot of confirmation, and you've heard it. To me, the glass is half full, but it's also half empty. What is the confirmation? It's a lot about detection. It's a lot about collusion. And within that, it's almost everything about bid rigging. So I wonder why those tools, those computational tools, are not used or not started to be tested to detect other conduct. Why only cartels? I mean, I understand why. It's probably easier. It's where it started. We started discussing this here at OECD more than 10 years ago. So we see that, but wonder whether, projecting us into the future, we'll see more experiences of using these tools in other areas, where it's merger control, unilateral conduct. Can you detect a predatory pricing through this sort of tool? So half the glass is half full, and but also half empty. I noticed with going to what Susana was saying, the sort of the Brava experience. Of course, I appreciated a lot the use of sort of patterns in the bidding strategies, but I also appreciate a lot the fact that they're starting to use sort of graph databases, the network analysis to explore connections. It's something that we heard here at the OECD several years ago. IOSCO, which is International Organization for where groups these securities commissions, and they're looking at other types of white-collar crimes like insider trading, where connection between individuals is very important. And they were explaining to our committee how they had a software or a tool which would scan Facebook or social media to see who's friends with whom, who's related with whom, how distant the relationship are, because that matters when it came to investigation of insider trading. And I always wondered, wouldn't that be also something interesting to explore for competition and bid rigging cases? So the connections between firms and competitors. So that's something that I have read with great interest. I also appreciated a lot the efforts to use AI and computational antitrust tools to improve explainability of the work of competition authorities. And this is something that has come to to the OECD in two different areas. One, how to better explain judges, very sophisticated, especially economic analysis. And I think that's where I think this can be an answer to that. There's a lot of frustration, and their answer has always been, well, let's train the judges better. They should know better. We can go in and be more and more sophisticated with arguments, but maybe we can simplify the presentation of those arguments. And I think this is an area where AI has been helping very much. The other is so explainability to the judge, but also explainability to the general public. I mean, Canada a couple of years ago came in and said, well, we need to speak plain English. I mean, we are too sophisticated. And so how can the public, acknowledge what we do, appreciate what we do, and support what we do? And so language matters. And so I think there again, communicating better in a more simple, straightforward way, I think AI can help authorities. The other thing that I noticed, of course, and I think it's been said very much, that access to data matters and it's still a challenge. And I've seen more and more authorities starting to add to the traditional databases, the procurement, the bidding databases that e-procurement allows authorities to use to do sort of web scraping. And very interesting. And I haven't seen, at least in the report, the risk. I mean, a discussion about risks and challenges. And I think their data security, reliability of data, and therefore the analysis, how those questions are being addressed by authorities who are developing these data from scraping the web. The other question is due process. I wonder whether at some point the parties will start asking, yes, okay, you're using all of this, but I would like to know why and how you go from a set of data to your conclusion that this case needs investigation. So transparency is something that might come up as an issue, and many authorities are not reluctant, but they keep the internal cooking of these instruments rather secret for good reasons. But I wonder if at some point one will have to open the lid and explain a little bit more about how those tools work. I've seen with great interest the use of sort of Gen AI in terms of extracting information from databases. You mentioned the French example. They're using database of decisions from, I think, the end of the 80s, and using Gen AI for the staff to not only access a decision, but try to synthesize information, useful information from those decisions. Very interesting. And I wonder whether that tool could be made, for example, available publicly. I mean, for compliance purposes. I mean, also firms and competitors would need that kind of tool to better comply with the French case law or the position of the French Competition Authority. So I wonder whether at some point we'll see development of AI tools, not only for internal purposes, and there are a lot of examples, I think, in the responses, but also to generate more compliance from the businesses. I could go on. I mean, I'd take a look at, you mentioned the Singaporean reply, which is also an interesting tool, an interesting example of how an agency can develop a tool for businesses to check. I think it's called the AI Market Toolkit. It's very new, May 2025. So maybe next year we'll hear more from Singapore about how it's going. But this is really a voluntary compliance program for businesses. So it's not for the agency, but they've developed a tool for the market. I was super interested, and I really encourage you to read the Polish submission, something that they are developing with the support of the EU, the European Union. It's part of their consumer protection functions and powers, but they're really using neuromarketing experiments, they're customizing large language models for regulatory tasks, using eye tracking to monitor visual attention of consumers, facial tracking. So it's very interesting. That really shows you like the sky is the limit when it comes to tailoring these tools for purposes of what competition authorities do. Last thing, really very complementary to what we do here. Here we hear a lot about how AI can help or new technologies can help authorities. I think your report gives a lot of concrete examples. It's really a source of inspiration for us, but also, of course, for authorities. So thank you very much.
All right, I will just give a 2 seconds comment, and then I'll pass back the floor to you for 1-2 more minutes. It's something we've been pushing for from the get-go with this project, which is that it can be, not always, but it can be a win-win solution, right? Where it's easier for agencies, but also indeed for companies to comply with antitrust. And we see that some agencies are pushing in this direction, which we very much appreciate. While listening to you, Antonio, I was thinking, well, actually, it's true that if you look at where competition antitrust is used, it seems to be used where it matters a lot, in a sense, where they haven't tackled necessarily some of the very, trending practices out of some of the large companies, but some agency, and I will ask you to try to identify which one in the report, put it in a bit of a poetic way, asking like, have we used our power the wrong way? Did we really tackle where it hurts the most for consumers? And it seems that competition antitrust is targeting those practices there. And the very last point is that in one of our annual conferences, Susan Athey, the former chief economist at the DOJ Antitrust Division, actually delivered a keynote in which she explains that thanks to computational tools, you can actually move toward more transparency and explainability that if she were to use just econometrics the way she's been taught to use it. So maybe something you want to explore. The talk is available on our YouTube channel. But I will give back the floor to you, Dr. Groza, for some final remarks and questions.
So there's very little to say after all this discussion, but I just want to push Lukas and Susana on something which was mentioned in the report for the first time, which is the issue of human-machine interaction. So it's the first time where the agencies raised the point that, and I think it was the Spanish precisely who said in very poetic language again, that a tool is only as good as the humans working with it. So I'm wondering, what do the two of you do at your respective agencies to train humans as well to use machines better and to understand them better?
I don't remember if we wrote that, but okay. No, but about training our own. Yes, that's a very good question. The first step that we had to do, and that was in the past, the first step that we had to do inside of the competition authority was to not be reluctant inside of the own competition authority to use it, because as Despina mentioned before, in the beginning we were like the kind of group of strange people that is doing something that they don't know where it's going to do and where it's going to go, and they are not making mergers and they are not analyzing mergers and why are they not and so once that we pass that moment and we show them that it's going to be useful, and it was something that we did it on purpose. The first thing that we did, it was actually that it was not Brava. It was something that we presented some years ago. I think that it was 5 years ago. That it was called GME. That it was a large language model based on tenders, in where you can use kind of prompts to look into all the database and in a very easy and really really quick looking way to find like the different contracts. And I want you to find me, for instance, I am looking for tenders in the market of I don't know, related with these two enterprises and between these 2 years, but only in the region of Andalusia and Catalonia, for instance. And through these filters, it was very easy for case handlers to do it. So coming back to your question, yes, we had to do it, we have to do it, but for us, the first thing that we did, it was create a tool that it was for them to use it in a very easy way. So now I think that people is like less reluctant and more eager to use this kind of tools. I don't know if Morris I answered.
Yeah, very brief. I tried to say before that the tools are not enough, right? So it's what also matters are the people who use the technology. And this is very important to us. So we need to be aware that the people matter the most. And having said that, also coming back to the point, so salary-wise, we might not be able to compete with other sectors, but still, I think we can offer an overall package, which also, of course, includes, to keep up to date in terms of trainings, etc. And a second point I want to mention is that, I mean, what is also very important for us that the people who are working with these technologies interact with other people in the authority, particularly those people who are doing the casework. Because if it's in isolation, it will be not as efficient as it can be. And we're trying everything we can to bring those people together to also raise the awareness of what is going on in different directions, because at the end of the day, it should all go hand in hand.
All right, on that, Susana and Lukas, thank you so very much for being here, for sharing your insights, also contributing to the report and to all of the agencies out there. We are most grateful by the response rate and the effort you put and all the insight that you are willing to share. The other part of the project is that we publish academic articles, right, where we just invite people. If you are interested, you can also get in touch with us, but we ask the very hard questions. What is working? What is not working? What are the dangers? So we have the theoretical part, which is covered as well. And we have, I think this year we are on track of publishing the most papers we'll ever published. So you can follow us pretty much everywhere if you want to keep up to date. And again, I am most grateful, and I know that Teodora also is, and a part of the team, to the OECD for having us over here. It's a real pleasure and honor. So on that good note, I think it's time to end the discussion. We didn't have time for the Q&A, but we have a cocktail party where you can ask all the questions that you want. So please give a round of applause to our speakers over here, and I'll see you over there.